could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Danny Brassell. He is a coach, a speaker, and an author. Hello, Danny. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. And more importantly, thanks for spreading some joy in the world. It's sorely needed.
Yes. Yeah. So today we're going to start into diving into your personal story of becoming the person you are today. Let's just start our conversation with you sharing maybe some important, some kind of point in your life where you realize that this is it, this is the turning point for you, and now you discovered your true passion in life. What was it for you?
I've had a lot of turning points, Anna. For 30 years, I was an educator. Working with, I began my educational career as a teacher in South Central Los Angeles. And then I wound up becoming a professor, and then I wound up becoming a speaker. And now beyond that, I actually train people how to use speaking to improve their business outreach. And so I've had lots of different turning points, and I can't wait for the next one.
Wow. So let's just see what is the main, I would say, I guess, the story that we will start with, as if you were discovering what is important for you and what led you to the right path in your life.
Well, so in education, and it's ironic, I'm now considered America's leading reading ambassador, and that cracks me up because I grew up hating reading. My father was a public librarian, and I always hated the library growing up. They always smelled funny. The furniture was uncomfortable. There was always some elderly woman telling me to be quiet. There was always a freaky homeless guy hanging out by the bookshelves who thought he was a vampire. And it wasn't until I started teaching in the inner city and I saw a lot of my students didn't have a lot of the advantages that I had growing up. I mean, my family was not wealthy by any means, but both parents were in my home. We always had food on the table, and my parents always read to us kids in front of us, and we always had access to great reading materials. And even now in my work with corporate executives and entrepreneurs, I say, I've studied lots of incredibly successful people, and while there's plenty of readers that don't necessarily become successful leaders, I have never read about a successful leader who's not also an avid reader.
Definitely, being a reader, I think it's kind of like a foundation to be successful. So reading skills, they supposed to come in naturally for everyone, but it's not always the case. When do you think people should start in terms of incorporating those daily habits in their life to become readers at the point where they could just develop themselves both personally and professionally?
Yeah, so Anna, I mean, speaking and listening are natural processes. Reading and writing really aren't natural processes. They actually have to be taught. And I found that schools, to different degrees, do an adequate job of teaching kids how to read. But the question I always ask people is, what good is it teaching a person how to read if they never want to read? I teach people why to read because I've never had to tell a kid, go watch TV. I've never had to tell a kid, go play a video game. And I never want to have to tell a kid, go read a book. I want them to choose to do it because they're excited about it. And so even with the adults I work with that tell me they aren't readers, I'm like, well, you just didn't have the right teacher. We can, the research is very clear on this, Anna. It doesn't matter what you read. What matters is how much you read. It doesn't matter if you're reading James Joyce or James and the Giant Peach. People who read more, read better, especially your audience. I mean, if you want to become a successful entrepreneur, read about successful entrepreneurs. If you enjoy reading People magazine, read People magazine. I mean, I point this out to parents. The little boy who only reads Captain Underpants is going to become a better reader than a little boy who refuses to read anything. I mean, Captain Underpants is the gateway drug to Shakespeare, but first of all, you got to get the kid interested in it. And so the tip for all the people out there who don't consider themselves readers is, you just might not be reading what you want to be reading. And another thing I always point out to people is a lot of people don't know that over half of the Fortune 500 CEOs are actually dyslexic. Dyslexic is a reading disability, and people have to understand all reading disabilities are curable. And dyslexics tend to process things better through their ears. And so my recommendation to a lot of people that say they have no time to read, I'm like, well, slip in an audiobook while you're driving and make your car your mobile university. I mean, I can listen to all kinds of great Audible books, and the research is also very conclusive on this. Being read aloud to is just as significant as reading on your own. So those are just a couple of tips and a long answer to your short question, Anna.
Yeah, definitely. So when people say, I don't have time to read, I feel like it's an excuse nowadays with all of the tools available. Like you said, either audiobook or a hard copy. It's up to you. What are you better and like utilize, and what is the best way for you to kind of absorb the information from the book. But also you can also set up a time in your daily routine, either before bed or while you're driving to work. Again, like start with small time that you dedicate to it, but then it can grow as your desire to read grows as well. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. I mean, and this is what I'm always training. I was just in Milwaukee last week training some business people how to use speaking to grow their business. And I said, this is why you read about successful people. There's basically three motivations for all of us. All of us want increased income. And people that say they don't care if they make more money, I'm like, well, a person that lies about that, I have a feeling will lie about other things. People want increased freedom. They want the time to do the things that they want to do. And really, the most important thing is most people want to have increased impact on the world. So they have a sense of purpose in what they're doing. And that's why I'm constantly reading different things about different people and trying to figure out, well, how did they improve their income, their freedom, or their impact, or all three? And so anybody that's listening right now, you can get all those. And actually, here's a quick tip for all of you. I'm kind of a lazy reader. I won't always read a very long book. And so what I do is I go to the children's section at either the library or the bookstore, and I read picture book biographies about famous people. And in 64 pages, I learn all kinds of different things. And then if it motivates me, I can read something more extensive at an adult level. But, the excuse I always tell people to tell me is, Peru has a new dictator. Next time you have a problem, just say Peru has a new dictator. And people say, well, what's that got to do with anything? I'm like, well, one excuse is as good as another. It didn't get done, did it? Let's prevent the excuse and actually start working on the solution.
All right. So with all different type of information and knowledge out there, it's only up to us to reach out for it. And maybe it also starts with it, with our school system, like you said, with the right teachers who usually ignite that kind of desire within kids, like to start reading. That's where it usually like comes from. But as parents, we can also facilitate that process with providing the books that our kids might be interested in reading and see if that grows naturally. And
yeah, I agree, Anna, and I'm a big believer in surrounding kids with positive things. I tell kids, you have the rest of your life to be miserable. This year we're laughing. I want to encourage you. I have a book club online, and I provide book recommendations for adults, young adults, and children. And when I'm looking for young adult recommendations, so many of the books, Anna, are about dystopian society or date rape or a loved one dying. And I'm like, no wonder teenagers are all screwed up. I mean, read something that's encouraging, that lifts people up, and those people that tell me they have nothing to read, I'm like, oh, you do have something to read. President Bush Sr. over 30 years ago signed a very important law in the United States. It says every television set in America has to have closed captioning. So here's a tip I always give parents: turn on the closed captioning. And people will say, well, wait a sec, if the show's in English and the subtitles are in English, what good does that do? I'm like, well, that's a fair point, but let me make a point. Have you ever watched a show with subtitles and not read those subtitles. That's very difficult to do. Your brain is actually directed towards the text. And there's actually research to support this. If you look at reading scores around the world, the more kids watch TV, the lower their reading scores are in every single country on the planet except for one. The country where kids watch the most TV actually also has the highest reading scores in the world. It's Finland. And people always ask me, well, Danny, how can that be? I'm like, well, Finland makes really bad TV shows. And so what they have to do is they import all these old American sitcoms like Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island, and they subtitle them in English. The kids are constantly, they subtitle them in Finnish, and the kids are constantly reading. So there's a quick tip for everybody out there. Turn on the closed captioning on the TV. It's a great way to boost your reading.
Definitely, because usually people try to avoid reading those captions and they try to turn it off. But with that small change, it will, increase your, improve your kind of ability to read and desire to read more. So that's a good tip for those who prefer watching TV shows and movies. But also, like, nothing can really substitute you reading a book. Again, like, it could be ebook or, like Kindle nowadays. It's easy to download, or like hard copy, or even listening. Or sometimes podcasts. You can listen to podcasts. You can get some information from it. And again, like, it all comes to the point where we should be willing, and we have to have a desire to reach for that information. So we know that with us reading more, it's like a foundation for a successful life to come. So what other tips or tools available for people that trying to find their passion in life? For example, they feel stuck, unsatisfied in their careers, and they waiting for something to come to their life, but they're not willing to do any kind of like effort in finding this passion. What would you recommend they should start with?
Yeah, so I like that word start, Anna, that you just mentioned. Your podcast is all about how to develop positive habits. And so you can't overwhelm people. This is why resolutions always fail at the beginning of the year. I was at my gym recently and it was packed. And I was trying to figure out why. And I'm like, oh, it's January. That's why it's packed. It'll be empty by February, because most people give up really quickly. It's baby steps. And so for reading, this is something that's interesting. Researchers were looking at the patterns of successful students around the world, and they found a characteristic that startled them. It was the number of minutes spent reading outside of school. They looked at the low students, the average students, and the high students. They found something interesting. The kids at the bottom of the class, the 20th percentile, your F students, your failing students, they average less than a minute a day reading outside of school. Well, that didn't surprise anybody. It's probably why they're at the bottom of their class, but this did surprise researchers. The kids in the middle of the class, in the 70th percentile, the C students, your average students, they average 9.6 minutes a day reading outside of school. And so if I'm doing a live training with a bunch of parents, this is usually when the first hand raises and a parent says, wait a second, are you saying if I can get my kid to read 10 minutes a day at home, I can take him from an F to a C? That's exactly what I'm saying. There's a lot of research to prove this, but this was even more startling. The kids near the top of the class, the 90th percentile, your A- students, some of your best students, do they spend 3 hours a day reading outside of school? No. Do they average an hour a day outside of school reading for fun? No. The average was just over 20 minutes a day. That's my role as one of my companies is how to boost reading engagement. And that's my goal every single day, is how can we get you reading 20 minutes a day? There's two things that everybody has to know. First of all, the research shows that being read aloud to is just as powerful as reading on your own. So that's great. It makes the what you were just saying about listening to books is just as good as reading them on your own. But secondly, those minutes don't have to be consecutive. So you can do 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there. I always tell parents, if it takes you 10 minutes each day to drive your kid to school, well, if you do 10 minutes of audiobooks back and forth to school every day, you're covering your 20 minutes. Most of us have this thing in our pockets called a cell phone. And when used properly, the cell phone can be an amazing teaching tool. Don't waste your time on social media. You're just going to hear about a bunch of people griping about something. I don't need that. What I do is I set alerts on my phone every single day. And so like some of the alerts I have, I'm a bad Christian. I have always wanted to learn scripture and be able to spout off scripture as quickly as other people. And so I'm trying to learn different verses from the Bible. And so every day at 8:18 in the morning right now, I have an alert to try and memorize Deuteronomy 8:18. Remember the Lord your God. He is the one who gives you the power to be successful. And in order to fulfill the covenant, he confirmed to your ancestors with an oath. All right, I almost have it. I think I'm there. When I read the book Dune, there's a thing in the book Dune called the Litany Against Fear. So every day at 9:11 in the morning, I have an alert to go through the Litany Against Fear, which is I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. And I haven't memorized that one yet, but I'm still working on that one. You can do also positive things, like I was married on December 20th, and so every day at 12:20, I have an alert to text my wife I love her. So these are some of the tools you can do to build those small daily habits, and that's what I would encourage your audience to do. Is just come up. If you're brushing your teeth, there's a concept known as habit stacking. The best way to build a habit is to put it on top of something you already do on a daily basis. So one of the things I do with my kids is I know that they're brushing their teeth every single day. And so every morning I put a different Post-it on the mirror next to where they're brushing their teeth. And it's usually some quick little quote from either a poem or a motivational something that the kids will read while they're brushing their teeth. This is something everybody listening, I'll do that once a day. Let's start with once a day. You do that, you're better than if you weren't doing it. So it's those little things. The reason most habit formation fails is people are trying to do big things. And I'm like, no, it's the little things done repeatedly that add up over time.
Right. It's like compound effect. So we have to instill those incremental changes in our daily routine. But the thing is, we have to be consistent with doing them every single day. And we will usually underestimate how much effect it will bring, eventually over like few months from now. But you don't know where you're going to be in a few months from now. But with you knowing that it will help you, it will give you that kind of advantage over time, you should start doing it now. And
Exactly.
It comes with your actions, not just you talking about it, thinking, wishing, but you have to do it. And the more you do it, the more you'll see the result. So again, know that it will take time. It's not overnight, but it will eventually bring you to that place where you're going. And with the tools available, and like you just mentioned, the habit stack, it's a good way to do it. Also, like if you just kind of associate one habit with another and put them together, it was just easier for you to follow through. But there are ways to do it. And if you look at the successful people, they all say about the same thing. And it's not a coincidence. It's not. You have to listen what they say and kind of get something from it.
And what I love that you just said, Anna, you have to actually do something. One of my mentors, Jim Rohn, used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Change doesn't happen unless you change. There's a great quote by General Eric Shinseki, who used to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he said, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less.
Right.
Right.
No, definitely. We supposed to be leaders of our lives. We are the one doing things, and we're the one reaping the rewards of our doing. So again, we should know that there's nothing that would stop us from, doing certain things. We are capable of it by, just being here. And you don't need to prove your worth or to prove that you can, because it's already given to you by default, but because you are here. So it's just a matter of you kind of pursuing those steps and getting to where you want to be. And again, it comes back to how bad you want it. And do you have a plan in place? What are the steps that you're going to take?
Yeah, what I love that you just said there is you said, how bad do you want it, which is the motivational component. But you can be motivated to learn another language, but if you don't do anything about it, you're never going to learn another language. And so the second part of what you just said, you have to have a plan. Well, let's make a plan that's manageable. What are some little things that I can integrate into my daily life, into my daily habits that will have a long lasting impact.
Right. And again, like, you know that you're not alone here. If you need somebody who will cheer you up, maybe you can have like a partner, like accountability partner. For some people, it's very encouraging to talk to somebody, and it will make a difference. But, you know, we are unique people here, and for somebody, something works one way. For another person, you need some extra help to get there. But in the end, everything is possible, again, with our own intention and willingness to get where we want to go. And like all those steps could be written, and you know, like, we don't need to overwhelm ourselves with a huge big goals. That goal, it's good to have like 3-5 year plan, but also you have to break it down to small steps. And that's where you see that it is possible to take those steps right now. And again, like knowing that it's just your own, you know, like willingness to do it, that's where it starts. And you will see the results as you go. And maybe something else will come to your way, that's something unexpected, maybe even something that you know, more than you wanted to have, you know. But you never know. At least like you should start doing it, and then you will see. And be open to other opportunities. Like, don't be fixated on, you know, something that you knew that it will work. Maybe there's something else better that you don't know, but because you're open to it, you will also accept it as a better way of doing certain things.
Amen. We'd all be better off if we pay attention to all the different opportunities. I mean, the older I get, the more I realize I don't know so much. Maybe I'm wrong. So I always keep my ears open to find a better way.
Right. And nobody could know everything. So we always students here. As much as we know, we're always students in this, you know, journey. And together we are learning all the time. And we're not gonna stop learning until we die, pretty much. So, and knowing that, we should always be you know, open to what is available and what we don't know, and willing to learn what we don't know, and you know, keep going and keep creating. So that's something we should keep in mind. And everything starts with, again, like with the foundation. And one of the key factors in that is reading, and you improving your own like skills of kind of like find that information. How can you utilize the tools available today, the technology, in something that will benefit you, not just with you using like social media or like TV as a distraction, but using it for your own benefit. So it's,
that's
again,
right. That's one of the things I used to say to my students, whether I was teaching my little ones or my older ones. I've taught all age levels. As they exited my classroom every day, I always said, remember, kids, education is valuable, but execution is priceless. Knowledge is not power. Only applied knowledge is power. Knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two very different things. So go out, do the right thing, and make this world a better place.
Yeah. Everything comes down with you doing certain things, and not just, like we said, talking or knowing about it. So, and if everybody was just doing what they're supposed to do, I mean, this world will just emerge in something more beautiful and, you know, like peaceful. And hopefully we'll see the changes in the future. But everything comes to the point where we should realize how powerful we are and what we can do on our own. Every single one of us can do it.
Yeah, well, your listeners have taken the first step. They're listening to you, Anna, instead of watching. I was watching this horrible show on TV the other day called The News, and it totally depressed me. That's why I've decided to focus on positive podcasts like yours. You know, you need to surround yourself with people that encourage you, and listen to podcasts like yours that inspire you every day.
Right. So the question you always should be asking yourself, who do you listen to? And that comes from that very important thing because, again, it's time that is valuable. Time is the valuable asset that you'll never get back, and how you spend your time is important.
Agreed.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and thoughts, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Well, one of the most common questions people ask me, Anna, is, Danny, can you help me? And the answer is absolutely yes. And as a thank you to you and your listeners, I wanted to give you all a couple of freebies. So if you go to freegiftfromdanny.com, again, freegiftfromdanny.com, I'm going to give every listener a complimentary e-copy of my book, Read, Lead, and Succeed. What this is a book I wrote for a school principal who was trying to keep his faculty and staff positively engaged. So I said, okay, I'll write you a book. And so what it does for you is every single week I give you a concept, an inspirational quote, an inspirational story, a book recommendation on a book you should read, but you're probably too lazy because you're an adult. So I also give you a children's picture book recommendation that demonstrates the same concept. You can read that in like 5 minutes. What this means for you is how to start every single week in a positive mindset. And I'm also going to provide everybody access to a 5-day reading challenge I did online last summer for about 700 parents internationally, where every single day for a week, I'm giving you an hour's worth of all kinds of ideas on how to get your kid to read more, read better, and most importantly, to love reading. And I'll leave you and your audience with this, Anna. I mean, many years ago, I took my family to Hawaii on a trip, and my youngest daughter, Samantha, asked if I would get up early the next day and watch the sunrise with her. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. But I didn't know this, Anna. Everybody has to listen up. The sunrise is really early in Hawaii. And when my alarm was going off, all I wanted to do was hit the snooze bar. But I had promised Samantha I'd get to the beach with her. So I got up, we went down to the beach, and we were treated to the most amazing sunrise I've ever seen in my life. And for the next 2 hours, Samantha and I just giggled on the beach, telling each other's jokes and different stories. You know, Anna, Samantha, she's older now, and we don't have those times together. And when I think back to that, I realize there are moments in life when all of us want to hit the snooze button, but the people who are rewarded, the people who are successful, are the people who go out and take action. So I encourage all of your audience not just to fill their minds with all kinds of things, but to actually apply those new things and make themselves successful. So thank you for all that you do, Anna, and God bless.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to include the link for that free ebook for people to look it up and download and utilize it and apply it in their daily lives. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy your day.
You too, Anna.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.